Hi, it's me, Vicky Marie. Sorry I'm a little bit late, only a couple of minutes late. Oh, it's all been a little bit anyway, I'll explain about that later because it is appropriate to talk. I can't decide how much to say about it. Anyway, first of all, thank you all of you that are here already. So let's just say hello to everybody. Oh, so you have been chatting as always. Chumba's nearly always first, isn't she? Nearly always. Hi, Chumba. Hi, Desi. Hi, Phyllis. Hi, Ray. Hi, David. Oh dear, David's not happy. Oh dear. Oh, David. Desi's having a dinner. Yeah, don't worry, it'll take ages anyway before we get going properly. Oh, Chumba, you have Chinese lots, don't you? Honestly, I keep meaning to have a Chinese and I just don't get around to it. But anyway, sorry. So, detracting from what I'm supposed to be saying. David's had a bit of an incident with his car. Hi, DMV. Hi, Rio. Oh no, the dog's going to start barking. The chihuahua's out there tonight. Hi, Heather. Hi, Tina. Hi, Renee or Rene. One day I'll get that pronunciation right. I don't know if it's Rene or Renee. Hi, Yvonne. Hope you're feeling okay. You feeling any better? Okay, right. Said hello to everyone who's in the chat. Anyone who's sitting at home watching, hello to you too. Even my trolley dollies. And if Stacey Michaels is out there, or you know, the one that's got all these different names, I think we know who we're talking about. Hello to you too. It's the nearest to Burmese food. And yeah, hello to everyone sitting at home. I know some people don't like to chat because they're too shy. That's fine. Thank you to everyone who's subscribed to my channel, everyone who likes my videos, everyone who has sent me a Ko-fi, bought me a Ko-fi, or PayPal'd me or sent me a super. And especially thank you to those of you who are members. Because, you know, it really, really does help. Oh, my little girl's here. My big girl's here. You can't see her, though. Tia's here. You might see her when she goes and sits behind me. The German Shepherd's here. Oh. Because she just got told off for barking at the Chihuahua. So she's coming to make up. Oh, bless. Hi, Rach. Have you got a hangover? It was so funny watching you just get drunk on your video. It was really good. And it's normally me. Oh, cheers, by the way. I actually have got a glass of white wine tonight. Happy Sunday. Yeah, so especially to my members as well, because yeah, I mean, as you know, YouTube demonetizes about, you know, you've only got to say, well, you can't say serial killer for a start. As soon as, you know, I say serial killer Sunday, that's it. You know, video is demonetized. So it really, really does help. The memberships help so much. Oh, you're right there. Oh, she's been all like coy. She's been all coy. Can you put your head up here? Let's see if we can put the camera down. There she is. Hello, hello, baby. Oh, look, she's going all white around the muzzle now. She's only 7, bless her. But that's quite old for a German Shepherd, I suppose, bless her. Anyway, now she's enjoying that. Oh, she wants another one. She's like grabbing me to give her another cuddle. I know, it was quite funny. I wish I would have. I don't know what I was doing because one night we should all just sit and have a oh, what you were saying about the music. Yeah, you can't play music, and not only that, you can't play music, Rach. You can't even sing because I don't mean just you in particular, but that's happened to me before. I was somebody else singing a song, but it's the people that wrote the song claim the copyright then. So you can't even do that. There's on YouTube though, on your YouTube studio, there are some songs. You'll find songs that are. Hi, Rabbit Man 39. There are some songs on your YouTube studio that you can use, but they won't be the songs you want to play. Do you know, like you want to do a disco, and because I've thought about doing that, and I thought, oh, that'd be fun, but you can't because YouTube picks up on everything. Maybe on I don't know, maybe on the other one. What's it called? I've forgotten what it's called now. Rumble. Maybe on Rumble you can. Oh, we can have a disco sometime. Okay, so we're going to talk about tonight. We're going to talk about. So I put that video on this morning about the clowns, and it was so funny because it gets. It's like nobody really likes them, do they? I mean, some people are terrified of them. Some people are like really don't like it. And then other people were sort of, oh, well, don't really like them, but they don't really frighten me or whatever. But I do think Stephen King's got a lot to be responsible for, because I think before Stephen King, I don't think clowns were quite as people were quite as terrified of clowns as they are now. Otherwise, McDonald's would never have chosen a clown for their mascot in the first place, would they? So I do think Stephen King's got a lot to answer for the oh right, yeah, they are ugly as well. Yeah, and I don't like their makeup and that, and I don't like the white face, and they do remind me of dolls, and I don't like dolls. Just give me the creeps. Would you know though, Rustic Rach, even if you get a busker, I think if they play if YouTube recognizes the music, which you would hope that they would, if you got a decent busker, even then, they pick up on it. See, they're so clever. They've got all these bots, and they pick up on tunes, they pick up on lyrics, they pick up on everything. I was thinking actually, because my brother, he plays the guitar, and he's like, he's sort of really good at playing the guitar, and he's got an average voice. Don't tell him I said that. Anyway, but he's very good at playing the guitar. I was even thinking of him to send me some like original songs that I know that then YouTube couldn't pick up on, just to be, because sometimes you just want to play some music, but nobody really likes clowns, so they're just looking at it. Yvonne doesn't like him. It's a very good film, but a very scary film, yeah. But the book is better. I think all Stephen King's books, the films are good, but the books are always better. I think he's such a brilliant writer. Well, he couldn't have written this story that we're going to talk about tonight. This guy, John Wayne Gacy, he's one of those. He won't have done clowns any favours either. Into the fact that he used to dress up as a clown called, I think it was called Pogo. Pogo the clown. He used to go around hospitals and do children's parties and things, and all the time people didn't realise he was actually a serial killer. And not only a serial killer, but he killed at least 33 young men and boys. And there's some good films out there about John Wayne Gacy, and also on Netflix. Netflix, always does a good documentary, doesn't it? They've got his story on Netflix on a series, very good. But let's have a look at him first of all. Let's just have a look at John Wayne Gacy. So here he is. This is obviously his mugshot. This is what he looked like. This is him dressed as Pogo, I think it was, the clown, but I'll check it later. Just terrifying looking at him like that. Really, really scary, I think. And look at the way he's laughing on his mugshots. John Wayne Gacy is one of those true he never showed any remorse whatsoever. Nothing, nada. In fact, he denied it. He denied that even though these poor boys, or young men and boys that he murdered, they were found under his house, in the crawl space under his house. He denied it. He denied it for years. You know, and he was insulting to the families of the victims. You know, he's just an absolute horror, you know, just no empathy, nothing for anybody, you know. He was just horrible man, actually. You know, they're all horrible, of course, serial killers, we say that, but some are worse than others. Some, the ones that torture the parents, then, if you like, mentally. Look at him here. Oh my God. Just the thought of him going round, you know, to see these children and now look at this one. This is awful, this picture, I think, of him as a clown. So obviously the killer clown, but he's about John Wayne Gacy as well. He was another one of those ones that he was imprisoned early on in his life. You know, how did he ever get out? How did he get out to be able to do all these murders? And we're going to look into that. John Wayne Gacy was one of the, you know, like the good old boys in America, like he was involved in politics, he had a lot of influential friends. He certainly had the gift of the gab. That's one thing that you could say positive about him. He knew how to talk to people. And his sister down here, I think, this is his sister. She loved him right to the end. I don't know, but the things he did, they really were so. And some of the horrible murders that he committed, he was actually wearing his clown suit. So you just think that just adds an extra level of terror, doesn't it, to the poor boy, whoever it was. And some of them were really quite young, you know, they were from teenagers up to young adults. So, you know, so 33 victims that we know of, and one of the victims has not been identified yet, very sadly. So somebody somewhere is missing their son, doesn't know what happened to them for whatever reason. You know, they haven't, you know, he hasn't been identified. One of the bodies that they found under the crawl space hasn't been identified. So, yeah, he was one of those that was clever. He was one of those that, you know, to all intents and purposes, a lot of people liked him. You know, he's one of those that lived amongst us, that, you know, he was married, he had children. I mean, he by the time he committed these offences, he was separated from his wife. He was really, you know, I don't think he was gay as such. I think he was predominantly gay, but he was actually bisexual because he got married, he had children. He engaged in wife swapping, which we're going to look at. But I don't know whether he probably swapped the wife for the husband. I don't know. Okay, so I'm going to read you a little bit about him, like where he was born, etc. So he was born in Norwood Park Township, which apparently is near Chicago, Illinois. Now, all of his murders he committed in his house, which was like a ranch-style house. And so what he would do, because he had like a construction company, God, you know, he just had it all sorted out, really, because what he would do, he would pick up hitchhikers, or he would hang around the bus station in town and look for young men getting off the bus who, you know, he could see that they were looking lost, or he would say to them, oh, have you just arrived in town? Or he would hang around the gay bars and then he would offer these men jobs, you know, in his construction company quite often. So he would say, oh, I can give you a job, you know, I'm looking for labourers, or I'm looking for this, or I'm looking for that. And then he would lure them, and if he, some of them he didn't get spotted, he'd just pick them up hitchhiking or whatever, and he would lure them to his house, and he would say, oh, he would lure them saying he had marijuana, or he had alcohol, or he had porn to watch, like, oh, I'm going to get binned up. I've got to start remembering to spell out these words, right? Anyway, I know I'm going to get binned off anyway, so it's no point. But yeah, so he would lure them there with promises. Not all the men that he took there were gay themselves, you know, so he would show them pornography, offer them drugs, alcohol, etc., play snooker with them. And then his way of getting control of them, if you like, because a lot of them were sort of bigger and stronger than him, because, you know, God, he's like a fish guy, not really anything spectacular. But what he would do is he would say that he had a magic trick to show them. And what he would do then is he would put them in handcuffs. He would get them to let him put handcuffs on them and say he was showing that he had these special set of handcuffs, and he would do it to himself first. He would put the handcuffs on himself and then release them. He knew how to do it. And he would say to the young lad, oh, bet you can't do that, you know, and then the young lad would say, oh yeah, I can do it. And he would put the handcuffs on them. And that was the end of them, basically. And he would then he would torture them, he would assault them, sexually, and then he would murder them with a garrote, or strangle them, or anyway. So that's what he did, and he did it over quite a long period of time, and the police had him on their radar. But it was that evidence thing. I mean, I think nowadays with DNA, etc., maybe he would have been caught earlier, but of course it wasn't. So this was when was he actually caught? Let's see. You can never find. Anyway, he was arrested in 1978. So now, in 1968, he had been convicted for sodomy, which of course then was illegal, you know. So I'm not advocating that, obviously, because he, you know, just because he was gay, he shouldn't have been put in prison. But it was the sodomy of a teenage boy, and he was sentenced to 10 years imprisonment. He only served 18 months. And while he was in prison, he got quite famous as a chef. He was on the TV because he would do the cooking. He was working in the kitchen, and a TV crew were in there. He was on the TV. He could talk. He could talk the talk. Anyway, so he was arrested for that. But he was sentenced 10 years, but he served 18 months. So he was out around about 1970. And then it was 1975. In 1972, he murdered his first victim. And then by 1975, he'd murdered another two. And, you know, he was quite enjoying it then. He was getting away with it. He was hiding the bodies. And he was thinking he could get away with anything by then. So he was born at Edgewater Hospital in Chicago on March 17th, 1942. He was the second of 3 children and the only son. So he was the only son with 3 sisters of John Stanley Gacey and Marion Elaine Robinson. Now, his father supposedly was very abusive, and they were a very religious family. They were a Catholic family, and apparently he was close to his mother and his sisters, but he had a difficult relationship with his father, who apparently was an alcoholic and was verbally and physically abusive to his family. So apparently he often called John dumb, stupid, compared him unfavourably with his sisters, etc., beat him with a leather belt. And then when his mother tried to protect him, then his father would accuse him of being a mother's boy and a sissy and all this sort of thing. Anyway, and he apparently always said to his son, "Oh, you'll probably grow up queer." But his first offence, Gacey's first actual offence, was him and another boy. They were actually caught fondling a young girl, not a boy. And then apparently that same year, a family friend started to molest John Gacey, which apparently John didn't want to tell his father because he thought his father would just blame him and wouldn't care. But John, as often happens when parents are abusive, but John loved his father, even though his father wasn't very nice to him and that. So apparently when he was young, he was overweight and unathletic, and he had a heart condition, so he didn't do any sports. Anyway, his father wasn't sympathetic at all. His father thought he was a malingerer. Now, I'm just coming back to just make sure you're all okay. Yeah, handcuffs. Anyway, yeah, he liked his handcuffs, and he had this special set of handcuffs. Now, something I want to tell you about was his, he got into politics. He reminds me of Ted Bundy a bit like this, because Ted Bundy sort of dabbled in politics, didn't he? So he got involved with the Democrats, which is, you know, in America, you've got the Democrats. You've got the Democratic Party, and John Gacey's father did not like the Democrats, so he was a Republican, so that was straight away another thing to get criticised for. Anyway, he worked in the ambulance service for a while, then he worked in a morgue for a while, which is one of the court filings in his morgue. Known about. He did start fest to things. Now, this is interesting, I think, because he then got engaged to a woman called Marilyn Myers, who was a co-worker. And she was quite sort of well-to-do, you know. Her father was quite respected, you know, in politics, etc. And while they were together, he joined this club called the JCs. Now, I don't know if any of you have ever heard of the JCs. I'm trying to go into it. So the JCs is the United States Junior. I'd never heard of it before I started researching this. The United States Junior Chamber, and it's a leadership training service organisation and civic organisation for people between the ages of 18 and 50. And business development, individual community, international connections, and he joined this organisation. Now, the creed is, we believe, if you're a JC, which I say I've never heard of before this, We believe that faith in God gives meaning and purpose to human life. In fact, I can share this. That the brotherhood of man, nations, that economic justice can best be done by free men through free enterprise, that government should be of laws rather than of men, that earth's great treasure lies in human personality, and that service to humanity is the best work of life. And then I was interested to see the notable JCs that they mentioned. And the one that stood out to me, one of them is Clinton, not got the best reputation of the United States. Gerald Ford maybe got a bit of a better reputation. Bill Gates, the chairman of Microsoft. Al Gore, the vice president of the United States. And then further down here, I mean, there's a lot of people that I don't know, but we've also got Edmund Kemper, the co-ed killer, another serial killer. He became a member of the JCs while he was incarcerated. Now, I can imagine him in this because he's a very, he's a horrible man, of course, because of what he did, but he's a very intelligent man. So he would love that. He loved debating things. Charles Lindbergh, the aviator. Richard Nixon, the President of the United States. Walter Mondale, Vice President. Elvis Presley was a JC. Ronald Reagan. So it's interesting, isn't it? A few notable members of the old JCs there. Anyway, he joined the JCs. Right, I'll go back to where I was now. Hang on. And it was while he was part of the JCs, he had his second homosexual experience. I think the first homosexual experience he had was with the body in the mortuary. Anyway, so while they were together, while he was with his, while he's with his fiancée, he had his second homosexual experience with a colleague from the JCs. He says they plied him with drinks, invited him to spend the evening on his sofa, and things happened. Okay, by 1965, he had risen to the position of vice president, and he was named the third most outstanding JC in England. That was, he got married to Marilyn Meyer, and her father, who obviously was a man of means, bought 3 Kentucky Fried Chicken restaurants in Iowa, and they moved there so he could manage the restaurants with the understanding that they'd move into Marilyn's payroll. So he was getting paid really well, share of the restaurant's profits, and he opened a club in his basement where his employees could drink alcohol and play pool. I think this is probably where he got his idea of getting these young men, alone. So he did employ teenagers of both sexes, but he socialized only with the males. He gave many of them alcohol, and then he made sexual advances. And if they rebuffed him, he would say it was a joke, or he was just testing them to see what they said. So then they had 2 children. Him and Marilyn had 2 children in February 66 and March 67. And Gacey later said this period of his life was perfect. Oh, because his father finally approved of him. And actually his father did apologize for the abuse that he'd inflicted on him, and actually did shake his hand and say, I was wrong about you. Now, so when he'd got to Waterloo, he joined Waterloo JCs, and he would provide free fried chicken at the AFC restaurant. He insisted on being called Colonel, and he and his colleagues, they were all involved in wife swapping, drug abuse, pornography, prostitution, apparently. So I think, you know, I don't know if his wife knew about that, if she was involved in it. I think she did, because I think one morning he just woke up and he turned around to her and said to her, the night before, you know, they'd slept together, just said, "That's it, I will never sleep with you again." So he'd obviously just decided he couldn't do that anymore. But anyway, in August 1967, he assaulted a 15-year-old boy, Donald Voorhees Jr., who was the son of one of his colleagues in the JCs. As is normal practice, he lured him to his house, promising to show him stag films, but heterosexual ones, and give him alcohol, etc. And, you know, said, I'm not going to read out the exact details of what he said and did to him. But anyway, he then followed on and did the similar thing to lots of other youths. However, in March 1968, young Voorhees told his father that Gacey had assaulted him. And that is, he informed the police. The police arrested Gacey, and that was it. That's why he went to prison. So on May the 10th, 1968, he was indicted for SODOMY. And he actually tried to get one of his other employees to sort of, nobble the guy who was accusing him, Voorhees, by assaulting him and trying to discourage him from testifying. And he got him in a isolated place. He sprayed him with mace, he beat him up, but he escaped. Voorhees escaped and reported it to the police. So it didn't affect. He still got sent to prison. And that on September the 12th, Gacey had to undergo psychological evaluation, and he was diagnosed with antisocial personality disorder, which apparently now is sociopathy or psychopathy. Anyway, but having said that, it was decided that he was mentally competent to stand trial. So he went to prison. He was a model prisoner. He rose to the position of head cook, as I was saying. He was like, that, I suppose that is a sign of psychopathy, isn't it? When someone, or sociopathy, someone that evil or that, I mean, he hadn't murdered anyone yet, as far as we know, but he had lured all these, who knows how many men that he'd done it to, and most men, young boys, they'd be scared to say anything, wouldn't they? So we don't know the full extent to what he'd done. But he was in June 1969, despite his exemplary record, he was denied parole. And so he did quite a lot of education, that to try and, sway the parole board. And then on Christmas Day 1969, his father died from cirrhosis of the liver. And apparently Gacey was absolutely unconsolable, and he applied for compassionate leave to attend the funeral, but he was denied. Anyway, he was finally granted parole with 12 months probation in June the 18th, 1970, and he had only served 18 months of his 10-year sentence. Now, I mean, I don't agree with his sentence for the sake of, because his sentence was for SODOMY, not for assault. Not, that he wasn't charged, it was just literally that, because that was against the law those times. So I'm glad he got prison for that, just because of the fact it took him off the streets for a while, though he probably had a great time in prison. I mean, let's face it, if you're a gay, I mean, prison's got to be easier than someone who isn't. But Anyway, he was released, and then again, though, in 1971, he was charged with assaulting a teenage boy. So he fell right back into his old ways almost immediately. And this boy claimed that he'd lured him into a car at the bus terminal, driven him to his home, and attempted to force him into sex. However, the boy did not turn up for the court case, so that was dismissed. Then there were various other things. He was arrested and charged with aggravated sexual battery, reckless conduct. Oh, he then started using a sheriff's badge to try and get people. That again reminds me of Ted Bundy, you know, pretending he was police to get these young boys into his car. Anyway, but again, you know, these things, they just didn't come off. These charges just did not end up resulting in convictions for various reasons. His parole, and bear in mind he was on parole at the time, his parole ended on October the 18th, 1971. And then a month after that, his criminal records were sealed. So anyone looking for, you know, looking him up, would it seem he had no criminal background? Anyway, he bought this ranch house in Norwood Park Township, Illinois, part of metropolitan Chicago, and it was his mother who helped him buy this. And that's where he lived until his arrest in December 1978. So apparently he committed all his murders there. He was helpful in his local community, helpful to his neighbours. He started up this construction business. He loaned his tools to anyone who wanted to borrow them. He helped. He took his snow plow out in the neighborhoods free of charge. You know, he was like a perfect neighbor. He hosted summer parties, which were attended by politicians and business people. Anyway, then got engaged again to Carol Hoff, who was someone that he actually first met in high school. She had 2 daughters from a previous marriage, and they moved into his house soon after. Excuse me. So apparently, Gacey told his wife that he was bisexual. Oh, and she was the one that he said they would never have sex again, because apparently that year, 1975, they had sex on Mother's Day, and he told her immediately, excuse me, oh dear, that this would be the last time that they would do so. And he started spending evenings away, etc. All sorts of excuses. He'd been working late, but really he was, you know, going out with boys or young men, and he was actually bringing men home to the house then, but to the garage. And his wife also found gay pornography, men's wallets and identification inside the house. And when she confronted him about all this, he just told her it was none of her business. So anyway, later that year in October, she asked him for a divorce, but she continued to live there until February 1976. Anyway, finally, the divorce was granted on the grounds of Gacey's infidelity with women, which was a lie. Now, so this is when he started dressing up as a clown, Pogo the Clown or Patches the Clown. And I showed you the photos of him. I mean, he said he didn't charge for a lot of his performances. And he said that acting as a clown allowed him to regress into childhood. So he performed at numerous local parties, political functions, charitable events, and children's hospitals. You know, good God, you just can't believe it, can you? Anyway, now, the thing about his victims, there's so many of them. You know, I like to talk about the victims, but it's I mean, I don't want to go into details of what he did to them. It's horrible what he did. I mean, it was torture, awful, you know, awful murders. But the thing is, there's so many of them to sort of go through them. On the thumbnail, I've put the photos of them all. Don't know whether to just even, you know, if there was just a list. Let's have a look at this. I'll come back to you and see if you're all okay. Yeah, none of her business. Yeah, bit like Savile. Yeah, and he did get away with it in plain sight, just the same, really, because, you know, he was luring these boys, but everyone thought it was this good old boy. You know, he's like, I don't know. Anyway, so let's just have a look. I'm going to share, because I do want to mention their names because it's important, even though there's a lot of them. So, look, there he is as a clown. God, terrifying. Here he is with First Lady Rosalind Carter, 6 years after his first murder and 7 months before his final arrest. He knew everyone, you know. He was in Democratic Party politics. You know, he was, I don't know. Yeah, you can imagine that photo of him with First Lady Rosalind Carter was an embarrassment for like the government and for the United States Secret Service, because he was already started murdering then. Okay, so I don't want to, as I say, go into the details of what he did to people. I just want to mention their names. So, rest in peace, all these victims. Timothy McCoy, John Bukovich. There's no photo of this guy. So, Daryl Sampson, 18 years old. I should have said how old the other people were. John Bukovich was 18. Timothy McCoy was 16, bless him. So Daryl Sampson, Randall Reffert, Samuel Stapleton, 14. Randall was 15. Michael Bonin, 17. William Carroll, 16. James Hawkinson, 16. Rick Johnston, 17. Now, 2 unidentified males. I thought there was only one, but no, it says here 2. Gacey is thought to have murdered 2 unidentified males between August and October 1976. Then Kenneth Parker, Michael Marino, William Bundy. And these are a mixture of people that he knew that worked for him and people that he'd picked up hitchhiking or at the bus station. Francis Alexander, 21. He was never reported missing because his family believed he'd moved to California. 17-year-old Gregory Godzik. 19-year-old John Zike in 1977. 20-year-old John Prestige. 19-year-old Matthew Bowman. Now, the police were starting to get him on his radar, on their radar, to take them apart. They had to identify them all separately. It was awful, you know. It was quite traumatic for the police as well. And then finally identifying them bit by bit, you know, and putting the names together and letting the loved ones know, etc. It was really traumatic. But it was all down underneath. So, but anyway, the police did smell it when they went into the when he invited them in for a game of pool. I mean, he taunted them, you know, he taunted them over and over again. Finally, so apparently, let me just see what it says here. These trenches where these bodies were, they were 2 feet wide, 6 foot long, and 2 feet deep. And then they just, the victims, the poor victims, had just been sandwiched in. Anyway, finally, on December the 20th, Gacey went to his lawyer's office, drunk, and his lawyer he asked for a bottle of whiskey or some alcohol. His lawyer fetched a bottle of whiskey, and then he just sat down there and started to confess. He retracted all his confession later because he started to confess. He confessed for hours to his lawyer, and he was really horrible about the lads. You know, he said that they were male prostitutes, they were hustlers, they were liars. And he did confess, though, to his lawyer to killing around 30 people. And that was the end of him, basically. But then further on down the line, he did say he didn't do it, but he did do it, obviously. And that's when they all, you know, they started finding these bodies, taking them out, but it took 2 years to get it all sorted, you know, to get them all out and to identify. There are still some that haven't been identified, but most of them have been identified now. So I'm not going to go through the whole trial. I just want to go through to his conviction. So he was on death row for 14 years because he was convicted. He was found guilty. The jury deliberated for 2 hours and then sentenced him to death for each murder committed, and his execution was set for June the 2nd, 1980. Well, that's very unusual, isn't it? In America, normally they're on death row for like 30 years or whatever. But anyway, it mustn't have. In Illinois, obviously, they didn't. There was no problems with the death sentence. Now, and then another interesting twist about John Wayne Gacy. While he was in prison, he started painting. And his artwork has been displayed at exhibitions and sold at auction. Let's see if I can find some of his artwork. Now, it reminds me, of somebody else, but I'm not going to say who it is. All right, I'm going to show you his artwork now. Hi-ho with a clown. Goodbye, Pogo. Pogo in the making. Let's have a look, see if there's any more. Yeah, God, his artwork is just as freaky, isn't it? Dear me, who would want one of those hanging on their wall? You know, what is wrong with people? Would you buy one? Would you buy one? I don't know how much they were signed. Dear me. Well, I don't think I'd want one of those on my wall. You let me know, would you buy one? And should he have even been allowed to do exhibitions and things? You know, that's not very respectful, is it, to the... it's not very respectful. It's not... Can't you see the pictures? You should be able to see them, Jean. I can see them on my screen here. Can you see them now, Jean? I think everybody else can see them. Let me know, Jean, if you can see them. You should see them. You should be able to see them because you got them now. Yeah. So what do you think? Which one would you buy? I wouldn't buy any of them. They're really, I mean, you'd just have nightmares, wouldn't you, surely? If you had those on your wall. Just the thought that he'd actually painted them is horrible. Anyway. God, let's have a look at that. See if this comes up. No. Anyway, you can see them on there, but you can't see them very. God, and most of them are clowns, apart from anything. So if you didn't like clowns, you wouldn't want them. Is this somebody showing off that they've bought one? Oh dear me. Some very strange people out there, isn't there? Dear me. Well, he is no longer with us. He finally, let's see, when his execution was May the 9th, 1994. So that afternoon, he was allowed a private picnic on the prison grounds with his family. He ordered a bucket of KFC, because that's where he used to work, a dozen fried shrimp, French fries, fresh strawberries, and a Diet Coke. And that evening, he received the last rites from a Catholic priest. And it was a bit like Bundy's, Ted Bundy's execution. There was a big crowd outside, cheering, and that, I don't like that. I don't think that's a very nice thing to do. And he was killed by lethal injection, I think. Yeah. And according to psychologists, he was a diagnosed psychopath who did not express any remorse for his crimes. And his final statement to his lawyer before his execution was that killing him would not compensate for the loss of others, and the state was murdering him. And his final words are supposed to be, though some people say there's no validation of this, but his final spoken words were supposed to be, "Kiss my ass." They were not an official statement. They were supposed to have been spoken to a prison official. So apparently, a bit of a morbid thing, after his death was confirmed, his brain was removed. And it is in the possession of Helen Morrison, a witness for the defence at Gacey's trial, who has interviewed Gacey and other serial killers in an attempt to isolate common personality traits of violent sociopaths. And his body was cremated. It doesn't say where his ashes. Oh, hang on, maybe it does. Let's see. No, it doesn't say what happened to his ashes, because I was quite surprised to hear, I know, he was definitely a narcissist. I was quite surprised that Ted Bundy's ashes were spread over the Colorado mountains. That was his favourite place. That's where he took a lot of his victims from Colorado. And he was allowed to have his ashes spread there, which I think is terrible. Because I don't know if you know or not, but Ian Brady, the Moors murderer, he wanted his ashes to be spread over the moors. and that was denied. And what they actually did was, with his ashes, they took them to an unidentified location, a water location somewhere, and his ashes were in a container and sunk to the bottom of the wherever it was. So, you know, his was denied. Myra Hindley, I think her ashes though are in a crematorium somewhere or whatever, I don't know, or were allowed to be dispersed in a park or something. But yeah, I mean, what do you think we should do with these sort of ashes of these people? Because obviously they shouldn't be given the right to have their ashes scattered or be buried in where they choose, especially if it's anywhere near, you know, like Ian Brady, you know, the thought of his ashes on the moors where he'd actually committed his atrocities, you know, it just couldn't be, could it? But what do you do with them? You know, and I know that they had to take his ashes out in the middle of the night to avoid, well, there's two things you have to avoid. You have to avoid like grisly sort of ghouls, like who go and try and get a bit of the ashes, or people who are so angry, you know, and want to go and disrupt it for that reason. Heather, yeah, that's it. I knew it was over a park or something. How disgusting that should have been allowed to happen. You know, to spread her ashes over a park in Staley Bridge, where I presume people go and walk their dogs or children go or whatever. Terrible, I think. But anyway, I know, there you go. So that is the story of John Wayne Gacy, also known as Pogo or Patches the Clown. You know, I don't know, where do these people come from? You know, it's like what makes, my own personal opinion is these sort of people, they are like that from birth. I don't think it's to do with their childhood. I know he seems like he had a relatively difficult childhood, that his father was abusive, etc. But, you know, lots of people have abusive childhoods and they don't turn out like that. So I do think, you know, and he showed no remorse, you know, because a lot of people that are victims of abuse or anything, they turn out to be more sympathetic, obviously, towards people. He was the opposite. He didn't care. Honestly, some of the interview, we've got a little interview actually to show you. I nearly forgot about that. I've got a little interview. Let's see. Yeah, let's have a little look at him talking. You can see how arrogant he is. Right. I've got to be careful what I can play as always, because I'm not sure about the copyright things.
To speak one-on-one with Channel 2's Walter Jacobson. Walter is here now to tell us what Gacey had to say in an exclusive interview. Walter.
Quite a bit. Well, I spent 2.5 hours with John Gacey listening to a whole new story about his case. He was rambling and often inconsistent, but always
honesty of it. If they want to be convinced or brainwashed into what they believe, then fine, then go ahead and kill me. But vengeance is mine, saith the Lord, because you will have executed somebody that didn't commit the crime.
Those are the words of John Wayne.
How dare he quote the words of the Lord? You know, just how dare he? Goodness me, let's just listen to that again. It just, the unbelievable. How dare he? You know, as if he's a religious person.
Honesty of it. If they want to be convinced or brainwashed into what they believe, then fine, then go ahead and kill me. But vengeance is mine, saith the Lord, because you will have executed somebody that didn't commit the crime.
Those are the words of John Wayne Gacy, pleading innocence from death row at Menard State Penitentiary 13 years after being convicted of his crimes. The most notorious serial killer of our time.
When they paint the image that I was this monster who picked up like these altar boys along the street and swatted them like flies, I said, this is ludicrous.
But the jury didn't find it ludicrous. After barely 2
Yeah, and another thing I just wanted to say, the prosecution lawyer, this John Wayne Gacy, said all sorts of things about him. He said that he'd seen him in gay bars and, you know, this, that, and the other. He just tried to blacken everybody's name. Because at this point, he was still saying now that he had, after admitting everything in the beginning, then he changed his mind, said he didn't do it.
hours deliberation, its verdict was murder by Gacey, 33 times, 29 bodies buried in that house of his on Summerdale, a crime of horrendous proportions. In the crawl space underneath, bodies covered with lime and encased in plastic, dug up a few days before Christmas and carried into the December cold, one after another.
Can you imagine how traumatic that was for those men? You know, to have to do that, one after the other, after the other, after the other. How awful.
After another. But despite all this evidence, he says he has proof he didn't do it.
Oh, so it wasn't him though. There were 33 bodies under his house, but it wasn't him. He's innocent.
Here's one of dozens of examples of what he calls proof.
I've taken 3.5 hours of truth serum, and under sodium amytal, the maximum amount that I could have, it shows that I have no knowledge of the crime whatsoever. Never have had.
But this is where his attempt.
But he didn't know they were there, even that smell. What did he think it was? I mean, it's laughable if it wasn't so serious.
To change history, which is what he thinks will get him a new trial, begins to break down. There is no proof anywhere that he ever took truth serum. Now, it's not only a matter of.
Oh, that was the other thing he said. He said that he'd taken truth serum and he still hadn't admitted to it. You know, he just talks a load of rubbish, basically.
Physical evidence. It's a character issue as well. Many times during our interview, here's how he describes himself as a father.
Loving and caring. I've always
So he's a loving and caring father.
Looked after my children, even now.
What kind of values do you remember imparting to them?
The kind of values.
Were you strict with them too?
No,
Your
not as
father wasn't?
not as strict as no. A lot of things that my dad did, I refused to do because I don't believe in hitting children. I don't believe in.
So he doesn't believe in hitting children, but he does believe in garroting, drowning, strangling, raping, young boys and young men. But he doesn't believe in hitting children. He's a good person.
Spoiling a child either. My values are such
Crazy,
that if you give enough love to the
you're
children.
accused of murdering 33 kids, and you say you didn't believe in hitting. I mean,
Well, anybody that knows, you see, first of all, you're basing this garbage on what you've heard of me.
And what the jury said, and what the courts of appeal have said. And the prosecutor who put him in jail says Gacey is a ruthless and sadistic killing machine.
He's responsible. He knew exactly what he was doing.
So this is the prosecutor that Gacey then, you know, tried to blacken his reputation when he said, oh, you know, he's just saying that because I've seen him in all the gay bars and everything. And, you know, he tried to, God, you know, I mean, he is a pure psychopath, really. You know, he's just not even aware almost of what he's done. Who would have the gall to sit there and say they didn't believe in hitting children when they'd murdered 33 young men and boys?
He planned it in advance. He carried it out, and he enjoyed it.
And he admitted it. In fact, boasted of it to the police. But now, 14 years later, he's denying it and talking to me about it. What does Prosecutor Kunkel think of that?
He's a desperate man. He's going to die in 2 or 3 years. He's going to be executed.
Yeah, so he's admitted it, he's confessed it several times, and then now as it's coming up to his execution, he suddenly decided he's innocent.
The law is finally carried out, and he'll clutch at any straw.
2.5 hours of clutching at straws, cunning and manipulative denials. But if you listen carefully, you catch him slipping up. About John Bukovich, for instance, his second victim.
What happened to what happened in the Vukovic case? Where was he picked up, and how did he get to the house, and what happened with him?
I don't want to go in. I don't want to go into the other the 5 that I know about. Just take it that I didn't. Vukovic is not one that I killed, so I don't know nothing about him. The little bit that I know about him is that he was an employee of mine. See, when you look about this recall business, and
I'm not a prosecutor, John, but you just
I know
said
you're not. Wait a minute.
is not one that you killed, which suggests that maybe in fact there were others that you did kill. And I'm not.
Okay, I'm sorry if I led you to believe. No, strike it then. That is wrong.
But it's too late.
Right, let me just see if there's any more of him talking before the end. Right, well, you can find them online.
To explain how the police misunderstood that and more of what he's twisting into his pleas of innocence tomorrow. Linda, Bill?
Fascinating.
Yeah. So there's very, yeah. What a waste. No, well, that's it. He's like, is that what you're saying? That the house was built on top of a cemetery or what? I mean, how did he even think, how did he even think that he would, that would go down well? I don't know. Let me just, maybe I can find the other one. This, I've got to be careful because this Netflix thing, Netflix always get you if you try to, let's see. Oh, my computer's. Look, I think my computer's stopped. It's stuck. Never mind. Yeah, but they're all there. They're on YouTube. You can find them on YouTube, the conversations. He's quite interesting to listen to because you just sort of, it's one of them where you just sit there and think, what? You know, like, it's just ridiculous what he says. And that, I mean, that just says it all, doesn't it? When he said, what sort of father do you think you are? And he said, oh, I'm very kind and loving father. And I don't believe in hitting children. But what he did to those poor boys, anyway. Still, he did get his one. He got caught. Justice was served, whether you believe in the death penalty. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. I personally don't believe in the death penalty, but I'm not sorry. You know, how can I explain it? I do think that, you know, 2 wrongs don't make a right. But I can see, I hope it gave the families of his victims some sort of comfort. I don't know, comfort's maybe not the right word. I don't know, maybe it feels, how does it feel? Or maybe it feels hollow. You know, even if it is your family member, maybe it feels hollow because it doesn't bring your family member back, does it? So, okay, thank you for watching. I'll be back in the week, of course. Hope you all have a nice Sunday evening. I hope you all have a good week, but I'm sure I'll see you before long. Oh, your Netflix isn't. I think there's something in the air today with various people's internet's not working and things. There must be something in the air. Maybe it's the weather. I've watched Netflix. Have I watched Netflix today? What did I watch? I watched so many things. In the end, I forget what I've watched. I have watched something. Oh, I tried to watch The Fall of the House of Usher, but I didn't like it. I tried to get into it, and I didn't like it, so I didn't watch that. Oh, Time for Hearts. Thank you, Tina. So, night, David, night, Chumba, night, Renee. Yeah, I'm glad you managed to get on. Yeah, we've missed you because you haven't been on for a while. Hi, Desi. Sorry, God, I'm saying hi. Don't even know if I'm coming or going. I haven't even finished 1 glass of wine yet, unlike the 7 that Rachel had the other night. Oh. Cheers, Rachel. Night, Heather. Night, Rio. Night, everybody at home who doesn't join in the chat. Night, night. Have a nice Sunday evening. Thank you for watching. And I'll see you soon. Oh, night, DMV. Night, night. Remember to live and love carefully, wisely. Don't approach any clowns whatsoever. And I'll see you really soon in the next video. And until then, may your gods go with you. Night, Tina.